On today's show, the offense for the Cleveland Cavaliers, far from a finished product, but we've seen the blueprint through the first three games, and we're going to talk about it on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave a nice review as well. Help us grow the show. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, like maybe a little bit of a bonus episode coming later Monday afternoon. You don't want to miss that. You're going to want to make sure that notification bell is clicked. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, is sponsored by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. So, the Cleveland Cavaliers off to a 3-0 start with wins over Toronto on last Wednesday, Detroit on Friday, and Washington on Saturday. It was nice to see the Cavs sweep both ends of the back-to-back. I was a little concerned about what the Cavs were going to look like in the second half of that game on Saturday in Washington. Back-to-backs in the NBA are never easy. Your first back-to-back of the season is especially difficult when you do have to travel because these guys have not played on back-to-back days at an NBA level of intensity since last April or March. So that was a nice hurdle to see them clear. But the biggest thing that stuck out to me from this weekend was what the Cavs look like offensively. That is going to be the story of the young season. We know they can play defense. We know how good they are on that end. And we know that not a lot of things are changing defensively from what they were last year and the year before to who they are now. Like they kind of are who they are, and they are really good at that. So I just don't think there's a huge focus on that end of the floor, but there is obviously a huge focus on what goes on offensively. And I believe that we are seeing what Kenny Atkinson's offensive blueprint for this team is. I thought it was on great display, both against Toronto and against Washington, maybe a little bit less against the Pistons, although against Detroit, leading scorers were Donovan Mitchell and Dean Wade, both had 19 points. No one had more than 20 points, but 6 or 7 guys were in double figures. That's a really good blueprint too. But I'm more so speaking about what things look like from a shot selection standpoint. I think that we are seeing exactly how the Cavs want to attack opposing defenses, and it's far from perfect right now. The Cavs haven't mastered it. There are things they need to improve upon that I will touch on coming up. But I think they're off to a great start. And the reason why the Cavs are off to such a great start is they have been putting a ton of pressure on the rim. So think back to Wednesday's game when they were in Toronto against the Raptors, what that looked like as Evan Mobley was getting downhill. He was super aggressive. They were able to get to the basket pretty easily. And part of that is, I don't think Toronto has a great rim protector. I just don't think that's necessarily how the Raptors are built. And then against Washington, again, I thought they did a really good job of getting downhill, getting to the basket. You saw Jarrett Allen finish tonight a perfect 10 of 10 shooting for 23 points, was second on the team tied with Darius Garland. So those are really great signs. And we are seeing the Cavs try and focus on getting downhill and getting beyond the three-point arc. I think getting beyond the three-point arc is something that needs to be improved. I think there are a couple of things that can easily be fixed as far as that goes. But the most encouraging thing from an X's and O's standpoint that I have seen so far from the Cavs is that mid-range jump shots on this team have essentially been eliminated. Against Toronto, the Cavs took 5 non-paint 2-point attempts. Against Washington, the Cavs, I believe, had 82 field goal attempts, 82 total field goal attempts. I have to go back and look at the exact number. They had 5 non-paint 2-point attempts against Detroit, and credit to JB Bickerstaff and that Pistons defense. Against Detroit, the Cavs actually took 12 non-paint 2-point attempts, but they still shot 51% from the floor, and that was on 82 total attempts. So the Cavs have done a really good job. Well, it hasn't been perfect because I don't believe they've taken enough three-pointers so far. They're 19th in the NBA in three-pointers attempted per game. That's not where they need to be. They probably, considering what their personnel looks like, especially in the backcourt, and we will talk about Darius Garland specifically coming up, they need to be higher in that category. But it is really encouraging to see them say these mid-range jump shots are the shots that defenses are going to want to see the Cavaliers take because they're inefficient shots. They're not bad shots per se. And I know that there are a lot of basketball purists that can't stand that they've been weeded out of the game the way that they have. But when you take 2 steps further back and it's worth 1 additional point, that three-pointer just becomes so much more efficient. And the Cavaliers have done a great job of weeding out the shots that aren't efficient. And like I said, credit to Detroit on Friday night for forcing the Cavaliers into more of those looks. That's what defenses are going to try and do. But the Cavs have done a great job. And granted, yes, they've played 3 teams that have not been very good. And tonight, when the Cavs play the Knicks, maybe we'll find out just a little bit more about what this team looks like. I'm really excited for the weekend. I will be talking about this week as a whole coming up later on in today's show. But the Cavs have done a great job of dictating where they're getting their looks from offensively because they've done a good job of getting downhill. They've done I think a so-so job beyond the arc. Like one of the things that I think needs to improve the most is there have been guys such as Dean Wade, I think has been guilty of this. I think Isaac Okoro has been guilty of this. Maybe even Darius Garland at times has been guilty of this. There have been guys that have passed up on open looks. There were at least 3 possessions against Washington that I can count where either Isaac Okoro or Dean Wade had an open 3, did not shoot that shot, and then the Cavaliers ended up not even getting a shot up on that possession. And I think one of the things that the Cavs are still learning is that sometimes the first look that you get that's a good look at the basket is the best look you're going to get on an entire possession. Because there have been several cases throughout this very young season where that's been the case. Where there was one play in specific on Saturday night in Washington where the Wizards were able to bring a late double and Donovan Mitchell turned the ball over. That happened because I don't remember if it was Isaac Okoro or Dean Wade, but one of them had an open 3 on the wing and didn't shoot the ball. So the ball ends up in Donovan Mitchell's hands with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. And it's kind of, what are you supposed to do in that situation? So that is an area where I do think that the Cavs can still improve offensively. The other thing that I don't know that it needs to be improved, but it at least needs to stay where it is the pace the Cavs are playing at. So through 3 games, the Cavaliers are playing at a pace of 102.17. That ranks 12th in the NBA. So you hear that, okay, well, that's 12th. That's not a bad place to be. And you're right. I think that is a fair place to be amongst the league. But I would also say that if you look at the leaders for pace last year, if you would just copy and paste that number, that 102.17 pace figure the Cavs have, and put that into the leaders for last year, they would be second for the full season amongst all NBA teams. So a lot of these teams up at the top are playing at an unsustainably fast pace because it's such a small sample size that number is just it's gonna be skewed up. So I don't know that the Cavs need to keep it at 102.17. Now, if they do, they're going to climb into that top 10. But I think being 12th is probably a pretty good place for them to be for a full season. I don't know if they need to go up in pace, but I kind of like the pace they're playing at. I don't think that they need to go down either. But again, they need to be taking more 3-pointers because this team is only taking 34.3 3-point attempts per game. That's not a number that's high enough considering what this roster looks like. Donovan Mitchell does a great job of taking a ton of threes. I think Darius Garland still needs to take more threes. I think Isaac Okoro, I think Dean Wade, especially when Dean Wade is in the starting lineup, And, against Detroit, it was awesome. Why was Dean Wade awesome against Detroit? Because in 27 minutes, he took 7 threes. That is where Dean Wade is going to bring the most value offensively. It's not to say he's not good at other things, because that's not true, but that's where he's going to bring the most value. So I do think with what we have seen through the first 3 games is the blueprint the Cavs want to follow. I think the Cavs are doing a really good job so far, but it's not a finished product. This isn't a thing, this is who the Cavs are. They're not going to get better. No, this team will get better. And I think those are the ways that it's sort of low-hanging fruit. They can get better in those specific ways. And I don't think that, I don't think it's going to be really, really hard to internally improve upon those things. Against Washington, Darius Garland had what I thought was an awesome game. I think that is a great sign. I'm going to tell you about why and what exactly I liked from his game against the Wizards next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. I've told you a lot about FanDuel because FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and it is the place that you should be going as you get ready to tackle the NFL action. Maybe tonight on Monday night, certainly Thursday night, next weekend when NFL games are back in swing. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook apps give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Maybe over the weekend, you had the Cleveland Browns, who they pulled what I think is the upset of the weekend in the NFL, defeating the Baltimore Ravens. Was super happy to see them win a game, especially after the passing of longtime play-by-play voice Jim Donovan. I think, maybe something special was going on there. So that was really awesome to see. Maybe you had the Browns. If you did, you were a winner on FanDuel. Maybe next weekend, you like the Browns against the Saints. I don't know. It's possible. We'll see what happens. I've not seen a line yet, but FanDuel will have it as soon as it does come out. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game too, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Where is that page? That page is on FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. If you win your first $5 bet, $150 in bonus bet coming your way. Head on over to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Also, check us out on YouTube. Got a second edition of Locked On Cavs coming up later this afternoon. If you're watching this Monday morning, going ahead, previewing the week that will be for the Cleveland Cavaliers, talking to some folks that cover the Knicks, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Magic, the opponents for the Cavs. We'll be covering all that. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and hit that notification bell so you get that episode as soon as it goes live. So Darius Garland, I thought was awesome on Saturday night against Washington. I thought he was awesome because I don't think there was any tentativeness for him. I thought he was very decisive in the way that he played. I thought his shot selection was really good. I guess my one qualm would be I wish that he would have taken maybe more shots against the Wizards than he did. And part of it was Donovan Mitchell really got going in the second half, but Garland finished 9 of 11, hit 4 of his 5 threes, really should have been 5 of 6. He had a foot on the line on one of them, which was one of those 5 non-paint 2-pointers that the Cavs took. But he also distributed the ball really well, where he had 5 assists. I think that if you get that type of performance from Darius Garland, and I still even think there's a little bit more there because I think he can take more 3-pointers. But if you get that kind of performance from Darius Garland, this Cavs team is going to be awesome. Like if he's that guy where that type of stat line that Garland put out, I don't know if that gets you on the All-Star team. But if you watch that game, if you just watch that game and you don't worry about the stats, you're just enjoying a basketball game, and you watch the way Darius Garland played against Washington, you sit there and say, that guy's an all-star. That's what that type of performance was. That is the exact kind of guy the Cavs need Darius Garland to be this season to get to where they want to go. I was really impressed with the way he played against Washington. I can't wait to see how he builds on that, because that is one of the main things that that the Cavs need to see. And I wrote about this in my Substack, The Inside Shot, and you can find a link for that in the description to this episode. But I sort of view the Cavs' core four in two different buckets. Now, it's not comparing their skill level. It's comparing what they do for the team. So Donovan Mitchell, who obviously is a superstar, the best player on the team, all of that. I think he and Jarrett Allen are in the same bucket. And I think that bucket is those are guys that, yes, they raise the ceiling of the team, but what they really do is they raise the floor of the team because they bring so much consistency. You know what you're going to get. They're going to show up every night and they're going to be who they are. And who they are is awesome. Obviously, Donovan a little bit more than Jarrett. But they're floor raisers. Like if Donovan Mitchell is healthy, the Cavs just are never going to be bad because he's that good of a basketball player. You know, if Jarrett Allen is healthy, you know the Cavs are going to get production from the front court. He's just not going to have very many bad nights. And then I think the other bucket is Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. I view those two as ceiling raisers because, and Evan, I think, is a little bit different than Darius because we know Darius is an all-star. But coming off the year that he had, I think if he has a really good year, it raises the ceiling of who the Cavs can be. I think that is a thing that is especially specific to this year. If he plays like he does last night, I think it raises the ceiling of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I do. And I should say Saturday. I'm recording this Sunday night, so last night to me, but you know. And then with Evan Mobley, if he reaches his potential, it raises the ceiling for the Cleveland Cavaliers by an incredible amount. He has the biggest ceiling raising potential on this team by such a wide margin. Where if he becomes the star player that myself and a lot of people believe he can become on the offensive end, and we've seen glimpses of it. I thought his game against Detroit was solid. He just sort of had an inefficient night against Washington, but he still produced. Like he had 13 and 13. It's not a bad night. He just didn't shoot the ball well. He didn't finish well around the rim. Thought to me, he kind of looked like a guy that was on the second night of a back-to-back. But if he becomes the guy who we all think he can become, the ceiling for the Cavs goes much, much higher. I think Darius Garland is similar to that, but on a little bit of a lesser scale. But I think he's that ceiling raising type of player. And I think that's so much different from who Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen are. I think they're in different buckets of how they can affect this team. And it's not that, you know, they're not great. It's they haven't shown it consistently enough. Like if we see Darius Garland be an all-star again, I don't think anyone would be surprised, but it would almost be a little bit of, considering what last year was, it'd be a little bit of found money. Like the Cavs would be playing with house money for this season if they get that from Darius Garland. I don't know that that's exactly true with Evan Mobley because I do think that the trade for Donovan Mitchell was not a bet on Donovan Mitchell. It was a bet on Evan Mobley to become a superstar. Now, Donovan, I think, has grown into a much better player than who he was in Utah. Like, I think he has just developed into a no doubt about it superstar guard. So it changes that equation a little bit. Like, that is something that does change things, but those are the guys that can raise the ceiling. And I think Darius Garland raises the ceiling for the Cavs by taking more three-pointers, by playing aggressively, by not taking a back seat, by controlling the game, particularly when Donovan Mitchell is on the bench. I think that's a really important thing because he's going to have minutes, several minutes per game, where taking a back seat to Donovan Mitchell is the right thing for Darius Garland to do for the team. But when Donovan Mitchell's not on the floor, Darius Garland most likely will be. And the right thing to do in those moments is to put his foot on the gas. Whether he's with Jarrett Allen, whether he's with Evan Mobley, doesn't matter who he's with. But when he's out there without Donovan Mitchell, he needs to be the guy that controls the game, that controls the tempo it's being played at, that is aggressive, that's setting up open teammates, because there still are going to be a ton of open teammates. Those are the things that I think Darius Garland can do. And I thought we saw a decent chunk of that on Saturday night against Washington. Like, I was really impressed with the game he played against the Wizards. When he plays like that, the ceiling for the Cavs goes up. I don't think the floor changes at all, but I think the ceiling goes up substantially. And if that's going to be the case, if he's going to bring that type of performance on a regular basis, I'm not saying, I expect him to go 9 of 11 from the floor every night. That's not a sustainable thing. That's not realistic. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the style of basketball of which he played. That's very important. That is something that makes the Cavs so much better. That is something that makes them so much better than they are presently. And listen, this is a team that's played 3 games. They've looked good in all 3 games. They've won all 3 games. But we also have to remind ourselves they've played against 3 pretty mediocre to bad opponents. More bad than mediocre. This week, it's going to get tougher. It's going to get much tougher. Let's talk about what to watch for tonight and the rest of this week as the Cavs schedule toughens up quite a bit. We'll chat about that on today's Locked On Cavs. Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is my go-to ticket marketplace. It should be your go-to ticket marketplace because, listen, Cavs games are here. They're playing at home, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Wednesday night, LeBron James coming to town. You're going to want to be there because, listen, I don't like to say this because I don't want to think about this ending. There's only going to be so many more times LeBron plays games in Cleveland. Only going to be so many more. You're going to want to be there. If you're going to want to get in the door, Gametime is the place to go for the best deal, for the best user experience. Gametime is my go-to ticket marketplace. It should be your go-to ticket marketplace too. And a couple of reasons why I enjoy Gametime so much. One, the all-in pricing feature. Toggle that bad boy on, and then you're not going to be surprised, bombarded with taxes, fees, other surprise charges at the end. You're going to know what you're paying up front. I want to know when I'm searching for tickets, whether it's for a baseball game, a concert, a football game, when I'm searching for tickets, I want to know what it's going to cost. I love seeing that all-in pricing feature. The other thing I really like about Gametime, when I'm sitting down, I want to know what my view is going to be. What is the football field going to look like? Or maybe if you want to buy tickets for Wednesday night's basketball game, what's center court going to look like from your seat? Gametime will show you within the app. It is one of the best features about Gametime. It is something that makes Gametime absolutely worth your time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you're subscribed. Drop a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell. There's another episode of Locked On Cavs coming later today. I don't want you to miss out. Hit that notification bell. You will know exactly when that thing goes live on YouTube. So make sure you do that. But the Cavs do take on the New York Knicks tonight. That is Monday night for their 4th game of the season. Will be their first real test. Very excited for this one. Very, very excited to see what the Cavs look like against what I believe is another Eastern Conference contender. The Cavs and the Knicks are 2 teams that I think is very possible could be battling for seeding as the season goes along. Like, I think both of these teams are capable of winning 53-plus games. I see a world in which this is an Eastern Conference semifinal preview because the Cavs or the Knicks got the 2 seed and the Cavs or the Knicks got the 3 seed. I think that is a very real possibility. So I want to see how the Cavs match up. Jalen Brunson obviously is awesome for the Knicks. They just traded for Karl-Anthony Towns a couple of weeks ago. What do the Cavs look like against him? That is something because the Knicks won, and Karl still is a really good rebounder, but he's not a great defender. The Knicks, I don't think, have great interior defense. They have fantastic defenders on the wing, but I don't think they have great interior defense. This is a matchup where there are some games you look at where, okay, Donovan Mitchell should be able to have his way tonight. Or Darius Garland should be able to control the pace of the game, should be able to get downhill, get to the basket. This is a matchup I look at and I say, I don't see anybody on New York that should be able to stop Evan Mobley. This is a challenge game for Evan Mobley, where he has the opportunity. And listen, they're probably going to put OG Anunoby on him if I had to guess. If I were Tibbs, that's what I would do. But Evan Mobley's got some height on him. I think if he's aggressive, if he can get to the basket, if he can use some of that strength, he should be able to have a really good night against the Knicks. This is a challenge game spot for him because you look at what he did against Scotty Barnes in Toronto. I think he should be able to have similar results against OG Anunoby in New York. That's what we should be watching for. Donovan Mitchell can have a great night in New York, and it should surprise nobody because he's a superstar, and that's what superstars do. But I also look at this game and say, you know what? I think that the Knicks really could have an issue this year dealing with size. The Cavs have size. I think that life could be difficult defensively for Karl Anthony Towns, and I do think that because of how the Cavs line up on the other end of the floor, Karl Anthony Towns' floor stretching ability might not have the same impact when the Cavs have two of their wing defenders on the floor, especially if the Cavs are going to start this game big with Dean Wade starting at small forward, which I do think makes sense for this specific matchup. So that's what I'm watching for tonight. Wednesday night against the Lakers. Anytime LeBron James is in town, it's just an awesome experience. Lakers are off to a really good start as well. And then national TV Friday night, Orlando Magic coming to town. That'll be a really cool one to see before the second back-to-back of the season as they go to Milwaukee on Saturday. So the week ahead going to be we're going to learn a lot about this team. First three games were nothing in the NBA is a gimme, right? There's no such thing as gimme games in the NBA. But the first three games for the Cavs, they were not necessarily challenged all that much. The schedule toughens up quite a bit starting tonight. The next 7 games for the Cavs are difficult. They are. What the Cavs look like 2 weeks from now, we will learn a ton about this team over the next 7 days. I can't wait to see exactly what we learn about them. So if you liked what you heard, even if you didn't like what you heard, you should have liked what you heard. But if you didn't like what you heard, even make sure you find Locked On Cavs anywhere you get your podcast and you are subscribed. Again, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, just search Locked On Cavs, hit that subscribe button, drop a 5-star rating, leave a nice review as well. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell because I will be back later today with another edition of Locked On Cavs.